Today, I'm going to be walking you through some shading basics. You need a pencil, an eraser, some paper, and some more paper. With this extra little piece of paper, I'm going to be showing you how to make a value scale. This will be a tool for while you are learning to shade. And shading and value is all about the lights and the darks of an image. So the first box in my value scale, I am leaving to be the white of the paper. And then with very light pressure, my next box is going to be my very lightest gray tone. So light pressure, nice and neat strokes. You can see they're not very far apart, but I'm going to go back over in the opposite direction to try to get rid of some of those little white spaces that are still left over. And then to get rid of even more, you can blend with your finger, or if you do not want to get your finger all dirty, rip a little piece of paper and smudge away with that. So there I have value 1 is the white of the paper, value 2 is the very lightest gray I can make with my pencil. And then progressively as I move to the right side of the value scale, the grays are getting darker and darker, and I'm paying attention to the pressure that I'm using and the space that I'm leaving between the lines of the pencil. And I'm really aiming to not have any accidental little lines peek through that are the white of the paper. Okay, getting right into the shading advice. I am going to first be shading an eye, and if you would like help with anatomy, that is actually one of the other videos up on Google Classroom this week, so you can go check that out if you are interested in drawing an eye. I sketched it out really quickly, and then more importantly for this video, the first thing you want to start with are the medium gray tones. So like the numbers 2 and 3 grays on my value scale. I am adding in those areas first, again paying attention to the pressure I'm using with the pencil and the amount of space I'm leaving between the lines. And really, if you're shading a solid area, there should barely be any space between those lines to start out with, because you're making it so much easier for yourself when you go back in and blend. And here you can see I'm starting to add in those darker tones. So after I've mapped out where my medium grays go, I'm going back and I'm finding the areas that need to be the darker values. And you can also see that I'm preserving the highlights. So what that means is leaving the areas that are light, the white of the paper. I'm not making everything gray. I'm remaining aware that some areas have light touching them, which means they can stay the white of the paper. Adding some details in. And the next thing, moving on, is I'm going to be shading a sphere. Starting out by drawing that circle. And then the next thing, I have to decide where the light is coming from on my paper. So I'm going to mark that with an X. This is my light source. And based on that, I have to decide where is going to be the lightest area on my sphere. And for me, it makes sense for this area that I'm circling to be the white of the paper. So to be that number 1 value where I don't even touch it with the pencil at all. And then progressively working my way out from there. As I get further from the light source, it starts to get to be the darker values. So I'm mapping this out for myself before I start shading. And then the other thing I'm drawing is the shadow that's cast on the ground based on where the light source is. And then you guessed it, starting with those medium grays. So not a lot of pressure with my pencil, but paying attention to the space that I'm leaving between those pencil lines so that I'm making it very easy for myself to blend when I go back in with the paper and smudge. And that was very quick, but I did medium grays, darks, and now I'm going back in and paying attention to those light areas. You will also notice that I'm trying to make a very smooth gradient for this sphere. I don't want to be able to see the harsh difference between where the lights and the darks are. They all just sort of smoothly blend together. And then what I'm adding here, this is called a reflected highlight. So it's like the light is bouncing off the ground and hitting the sphere near the ground there. And then same thing with the shadow. Started with the medium grays, went back in and added the darker areas. And based on the light source, I decided that the area close to the sphere does not get as much light, so it should be a darker value. And with all this, I'm just making it up based on what I know to be true from value in real life. But if you are not super familiar with the way that values look around you and see the way that light is being cast on the things around you. So based on the light source, some areas of objects are lighter and some areas are darker. It makes sense in your head, but really look around your room and see what you can find just around yourself. Here I have moved on to a cube while I got off to talking, but you guessed it, started with the medium values and worked my way to the darker values. When you are shading something that has flat surfaces like a cube, the basic idea is that these are 3 surfaces I can see. They're going to be 3 different values based off where the light source is, and I was using the same light source for this shape as I was for the other shape. So all of that shading is done. Now I could leave this as it is, but I'm going to try to make it a little bit more interesting by adding more of a gradient to each of the sides. So that means not leaving it a flat color, but making it so that there's a lighter and a darker area within each of these sides. So just watch if that didn't make sense to you. I am tapping the eraser, so I'm not taking up all of the material I laid down, just a little bit of it, and then going back and blending so it's not such a harsh difference. And I did that to each of the sides. So picked up a little highlight and then blended out just to make each of those sides a little bit more interesting than just one flat color. And then same as with the cube, or sorry, same as with the sphere, there is a cast shadow because the light source is putting light on one side, and on the opposite side, a shadow is being cast from the form onto the ground. And same thing that I've been talking about this whole time, medium tones, dark tones, adding in the little pop of a highlight. And that is it for me this week. For your practices, do not forget the value scale. You are including all of these values in your drawing. If you're missing a value, you're missing something. While you are practicing, you could run through this video and do all of these things that I've just talked about. You could also take a drawing from the past 2 weeks and try to add shading to that. You could make a new drawing. Just remember, create your value scale first so you can practice your pressure, practice your blending, practice not making a huge mess, and then apply the skills you just practiced with that value scale to whatever you are drawing. If you don't want to think about it too hard, you could follow this video. But you could also, like I said, take one of our drawings from the last couple of weeks, make a new drawing. But the main thing I want you to take away is including values 1 through 6 on whatever it is you're drawing this week. Okay, I'm excited to see what you all make. If you have questions, please let me know.